Hello and welcome to this edition of World Insight, 30 minutes of news and analysis on the stories that count. I'm Li Dongning in Beijing. In our first story, we focus on the U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. The recent decision by the Obama administration has set off alarms in Beijing, and many American policymakers believe that the row over Taiwan will be manageable and will serve the domestic political purpose of the embattled 44th President of the U.S. But they seem to forget that China has its own national interests as well.
As people in Taiwan were preparing for the Chinese New Year, Americans sent a big present.
The Department of Defense, under the Foreign Military Sales Program, notified Congress today of the administration's intent to sell various defensive systems to Taiwan.
The new arms package includes 60 Black Hawk helicopters, 114 Patriot anti-missile systems, 2 Osprey-class mine-hunting ships, and a command and control enhancement system. Total value, $6.4 billion. Beijing immediately voiced its anger. Vice Foreign Minister He Yafei summoned the U.S. Ambassador John Huntsman that very night. He said the American decision constitutes a gross intervention into China's internal affairs, seriously endangers China's national security, and harms China's peaceful reunification efforts. The Defense Ministry was also furious.
China has decided to cancel the scheduled military exchange visits with the U.S. China will pay close attention to the development of the situation and respond appropriately.
Beijing also warned of severe harm to bilateral ties and cooperation on international and regional issues. And for the first time, China threatened sanctions against U.S. companies involved, including Boeing, United Technologies, Lockheed Martin, and Raytheon. Western media were shocked. British newspaper The Guardian quoted one analyst saying, "This is the strongest reaction we have seen in recent years." American newspaper New York Times said the announcement of restrictions on the Chinese operations of American companies involved in the arms sales represents an unusual twist.
There are two reasons for China to react so furiously. One is because cross-strait relations have developed fast in the last 2 years, so the arms sale to Taiwan could be taken as an attempt to slam the brakes on the rapidly warming ties. The other reason is the arms sale could prevent the healthy growth of the China-U.S. relationship. In the past, China didn't react to any of the abnormal assaults by the U.S., but now it is different. China will certainly make the U.S. pay for its weapons sales to Taiwan more than before.
U.S. arms sales to Taiwan did not stop after China and the U.S. established diplomatic relations in 1979. On August 17, 1982, China and the U.S. released the joint communiqué. The U.S. committed to a gradual decrease of arms sales to Taiwan that would lead to a final resolution. But nearly 30 years on, the sales continue. Over 50 deals were approved by 6 U.S. administrations. From 1994 to 2000 alone, Taiwan imported weapons and equipment valued at $15 billion, ranking first in the world.
Containing China with a Taiwan card is a consistent policy of the U.S. And with the peaceful rights of China, the factors which can restrain China are decreasing. Taiwan becomes the most useful card to play. On the cross-strait relationship, the U.S. calls for no unification, no independence, and no war. And the core is no unification.
According to reports from Taiwan media, the price of the arms is much higher than the value. 60 Black Hawk helicopters worth over 99 billion new Taiwan dollars, around $3 billion US, 40% more than the original 71.8 billion or 2.24 billion US dollars. All the money spent on arms in the past 20 years, divided by every person in Taiwan, comes to 45,000 new Taiwan dollars, about $1,400 US.
Buying some rubbish like Black Hawk increased lots of expenses.
But Taiwan leader Ma Ying-jeou welcomes the deal.
The arms sale is a protective measure for us, and with these weapons, Taiwan will have more confidence and feel safe in developing cross-strait ties.
Some critics say buying arms can be viewed as Taiwan paying U.S. protection. But U.S. says it's to maintain stability across the strait.
I think the people of Taiwan are seeking to reconcile with mainland China, but not through the threat of invasion at the force of a gun. And my commitment to the Taiwanese people is not going to change because of mainland China's action here.
With Ma Ying-jeou and his Kuomintang in power, cross-strait relations have achieved historic progress since 2008. Taiwan and the mainland have signed 12 agreements in the past 20 months, covering issues like direct mail, shipping, flights, investment, and tourism. Then came the arms sale. Now, some analysts believe the so-called Chinese threat has become the American threat.
The U.S. says all they sell to Taiwan are defensive weapons. But in modern wars, the boundary between defensive and offensive is more blurred, such as anti-missile systems and Black Hawks. Both can be used as combat weapons.
If Taiwan carries out an arms race with the mainland under the incitement of the U.S., the security situation will surely get nervous. As a matter of fact, there is no military significance but more political meaning in the U.S. selling weapons to Taiwan, because Taiwan will never be the mainland's military equal.
The Taiwan issue is the most important and sensitive issue at the core of Sino-U.S. relations. In 1996, the two sides came close to war over the Taiwan Strait crisis, and arms sales inevitably increased the instability of the region.
I think it was a big mistake for the U.S. to do that, and it will affect bilateral diplomacy very much. It is not good for the people of the two countries, as we ordinary people want peace, not war.
And though China's anger over arms sales hadn't cooled, the U.S. provoked China again. On Tuesday, Washington said President Obama still intends to meet with the Dalai Lama. Some Western media outlets still describe him as a spiritual leader, but China views him as a political figure who has never given up Tibet independence.
If the U.S. leader chooses to meet with the Dalai Lama at this time, it will certainly threaten trust and cooperation between China and the U.S. How would that help the U.S. surmount the current economic crisis? It would be useless.
In the past 30 years, China never harmed the core interests of the U.S., such as anti-terrorism and anti-proliferation. In those years, China has always taken an active attitude to cooperate. But on the contrary, arms sales to Taiwan, meeting with the Dalai Lama, both harm China's core interest and interfere with national sovereignty.
Entering 2010, alarms have been raised in Sino-U.S. ties. Google and trade disputes, as well as arms sales to Taiwan, pushed the tensions high. China and the U.S. have different strategic interests, but in the past 30 years, the two nations have stood together many times. And the world is hoping China and the U.S. will seize the moment and not let it slip through their fingers.
China and the U.S. are interdependent, and China is the largest foreign holder of U.S. government debt, and the U.S. is China's largest export market as well. But according to the U.S. think tank Eurasia Group, the biggest risk for 2010 comes from Sino-U.S. relations. We'll keep you updated as events unfold. Up next, Ukraine's presidential election. 5 years after the Orange Revolution, the people want more than promises. You've been watching World Insight. We'll be right back after this.